On this episode of When Does It End? Chris and Tori will take a deep dive into the differences between gender identity, sexuality, and gender expression. As we all know, these three different things lie on a spectrum, and it is important to view people in the way that they desire to be viewed. Join us as we discuss this with our guests and learn what respecting their P really means. Welcome back, and welcome back. And it's time for you to take a seat and come on in this room. It's Chris and Tori Cooper, and we're bringing to you another amazing, thought-provoking episode of When Does It End? Now, today's episode is going to be a little bit different because it's an extension of another episode. Baby, this topic is so hot, so juicy that we could not just give you one, so we're giving you two. So we bring it back, Respect My P. And before we begin, and if you missed the first season of this one, we're going to give a brief definition about what Respect My P means. So Respect My P can be whatever you want it to be. For some people, it's pronouns. For others, it's some people, it's and for Tori and me, baby, it is the pay. And one thing for sure, P can also stand for principles of point of view for whoever, whatsoever, and whichsoever. As my bishop would say, your P today, we'll put some respect on it, okay? So within this episode, we'll be talking to a group of amazing people of non-binary, gender non-conforming, and trans experience from across the world. And we'll be talking everything from pronouns to respect to HIV to how we can truly end the HIV epidemic in this community. Tori, do you have something you want to add before we hop into it?
You know I do, and thank you again, Chris, and welcome to all of our kin folks, all of our skin folks, and to all folks. We're going to talk more about what Respect My P means and what it means to you. And we're going to have each and every one of our guests tell you a little bit about who you are, what they do, and where they do it, and what their Ps are. So in our Watch Party segment, we did a deep dive into the differences between gender identity, between sexual expression, and also gender expression and sexuality. As we all know, these three different things lie on a spectrum, a continuum, and it's really important to view people in the way that they desired and deserve to be viewed. With that being said, why is it necessary to use the correct pronouns when identifying people? I think that's a great question to get us started today. What do you think, Chris?
I agree. But first, before we get into any questions, let's have our amazing co-hosts of the day unmute themselves and share who they are, what they do, how they do it, and their pronouns. And let's go in this order. Let's start with Lash, Renee, Bambi, and Naomi. Co-hosts, y'all take it away.
Hey y'all, what's up? It's me, Lash, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. I work for NASEM Incorporated, which is a nonprofit organization. I basically do HIV testing, STI testing, peer counseling, connect to care. Pronouns is she, they, and yeah, I'm the girl.
So nice to have you here. I'm excited. Renee, how about you? Let's introduce yourself to the people.
Hey y'all, I am Renee Taylor. I reside in Memphis, Tennessee. I am right now currently not working for any organization, so I guess I'm a consumer advocate. And that's it.
Another Memphian in the room, baby. Now I don't want another. I love to see it. Bambi, how about you?
Bueno, primero que nada, quiero dar gracias a mi poder superior y a las personas que nos acompañan. También quiero honrar la presencia de las personas que están aquí. Greetings, beautiful and amazing people. My name is Bambi Salcedo, and I'm sorry for those of you who were not able to understand, but I always express my gratitude to my creator, my higher power, for allowing me to breathe one more day. I also want to obviously honor the beautiful and amazing people who are joining us today, and I am so humbly grateful that I get to be part of this amazing group of people. So my name is Bambi Salcedo, and I do have the privilege to be the president and the CEO of the Trans-Latino Coalition, which is a national organization that is based in Los Angeles, which is from where I'm greeting you on Tangba land. I'm just so grateful to be here. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for that, Bambi. And last but not least, let's finish it with Miss Naomi.
Hello, I am Naomi Green, located in Dallas, Texas. I am a consultant in marketing and strategies for Crush Limits. I'm also a community advocate, community member, and then I serve on the board for a couple of local statewide organizations and on the Rhine White Planning Council as well. Thank you for having me today. Excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. So happy to have you here. And to our audience, as you see, we have some more heat in today's discussion. So wherever you are, sit down, put in your headphones, grab a snack, because I guarantee you it's going to keep you engaged and interested. So let's pop it off. How about that, Tori? What you think about that?
I think that would be great. And I'll be happy to reiterate my question, and let's get started with the convo. How about that, Chris? Great. So in the order that you all just introduced yourselves, we really want to talk a little bit about, in this particular instance, for pronouns, all right? So Chris told you our pronouns today is paycheck. It might be different by the time we finish this conversation. But if P were for pronouns, tell us why it's necessary to use the correct pronouns when identifying people.
I just feel like it's really important to use the correct pronouns when identifying people, is because of the fact that you never want to like disrespect anybody or make anybody feel uncomfortable or anything like that. And just because a person may be visibly seen as something that may not be how that person identified, and that's just things that I just tell my peers all the time. Like, I may be male in the physical, but that may not be my pronouns or anything like that. Like, I'm very, she, they, and it comes, I think it just comes along with just getting to know the individual, which I don't always like go straight into attack mode when people may say sir or anything like that. I always, just let them like, hey, I prefer to be addressed by they or she. And so it's always a learning process, but I just feel like it's just, you never want to disrespect the individual, and you always want to just come from a place of just trying to be understanding.
Thank you for that. That's real. I think that a lot of times when it comes to respecting people for their pronouns, people go off based off what they see, right? And not what they know about the person. And even oftentimes people don't even want to get to know a person for who they are. So exactly. It's important in terms of respect. Before you identify somebody, hey, what do you want to be called? Hey, what's your name? Hey, what are your pronouns? Because that's letting people know that you're seeing them for who they authentically are, not for who you want them to be, or not for who you see them as, but for how they want to show up and present themselves.
Exactly.
So how about you, Renee? Why is it so important for people to use the correct pronouns or to address people in the ways that they want to be addressed?
I feel like it's a power dynamic, and that you, by misgendering people, you're taking power away from that person's way of being authentic, being true, and representing who they are. Like, my doctor just retired. My doctor of 15 years, he just retired, and they switched me to someone else in the practice. And one of the MAs told him what my pronouns was, and that he couldn't call me Mr. So at my next visit, he was like, well, I was told that I was not allowed to call you Mr. So how do I address you? I said, you come from a nation that had 5 genders, but it's hard for you to just call me Renee or they or she. I said, it's not that hard. And if you see me more than one time, it's repetitive. So you already know what the deal is when you're coming. So I told the MA, I said, my physical is coming up. And I said, since he can't get my pronouns right, I don't think he deserves to do my physical. He shouldn't look at my anus if he can't get my pronouns right, because that's not the kind of care I'm looking for. So I think it's very important that you respect people. And I know that we may have a male body, which is assigned male. It may be what people want to see. I feel like when it comes to gender, I wish that we could see auras. And you be like, oh, I see your aura. Your aura said that you're female, or your aura said that you're male, or your aura said that you're not. But it's highly important for people to be able to be respected, and just want to be respected, and that I get the treatment I deserve from the healthcare system, even though it's messed up.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Lash and Renee, we're going to come back to both of you because we do want to dive a little deeper into the they pronouns also. All right. Sorry about that, Bambi. Go ahead, darling.
No, it's okay. Thank you. You know, I believe definitely that pronouns are important because, you know, when you affirm someone for who they are, it sends a message that you're telling them, I see you, right? And so it's definitely, you know, a confirmation and a validation, right? And I think it's important to understand, you know, the effects of the causes, you know, when we misgender someone, right? There is research actually that speaks about, you know, the repercussions that when this type of situations happen, right? It messes up with our mental health, and it messes up with, it could be with our day, you know, like it could just be a moment that our day could be ruined. So it's definitely super important that people understand, you know, how we want to be seen and how we want to be validated and how we navigate the world, right? Because it is through that lens that, you know, we walk our path, and people should be able to acknowledge and appreciate that.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I think that visibility is important. And I think that having a sense of pride in who people are is important for reaching other people who have yet to decide to walk into their truths, right? Or who may need some support in being their most authentic selves. So I really appreciate that point. Naomi, how do you feel about the topic?
Yeah, right. And my P, which goes along with my pronouns, whoever I am, and I tell you that I am, respect my privacy and my pronouns. What I have going on below my clothing is none of your business. It's I am who I tell you that I am, and respect my privacy in everything that entails. And discussing my private parts means also discussing my personal health information, and that's a violation of my HIPAA rights. So respect my pronouns. Don't dive any deeper than who I tell you I am, not always what you see or what your perception of me is. It's who I am. And respecting that means that you're respecting me as a human being and respecting me as a P for person.
That's great. And as before Chris asks the next question, I thought of a quote by Maya Angelou that says, when people tell you are, believe them the first time. And it's so true. Pronouns are a way for people are sharing information to you. They're giving you an insight to who they are. And if you don't pay attention to it, if you're not respecting them, what you're saying is, you're not who you're telling me that you are.
That was good. And thank you for that response, Naomi. You actually kind of like laid it. Why is it important to respect people's pronouns? But I would like to know more about, what does your P represent outside of your pronouns? So for you, Naomi, you share with us that it's your privacy. You know, it's my person, that's me. But I would like to hear from Lash, Renee, and Bambi about what does their P mean to them outside of the pronouns.
For me, I think I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of Naomi's because that's definitely a thing that I can definitely relate to. Because dealing with, and we can talk freely, right?
Yeah.
Okay, period. Okay, so I was in a situation or whatever, and dating wise, and I don't necessarily call my thing, so I call it my fish stick or whatever. And so literally like, cause you know, so it was a situation where he asked me like, at the end of the day, he was like, at the end of the day, you a nigga. And I was like, baby, we're not gonna dive into all of that. And if you can't respect me, like, for like she said, like, if you can't respect me for what I'm telling you I am, like, Yeah, and at first I thought it was just like a kid, like, we just came back and forth. But then when he started to like really get serious because of the fact that like I'm trying to explain to you, and I get it, like I said, I always give people a chance the first time to try to like get an understanding because, we live in a world today that, people may not know or, it's always a room for education. So I'm always trying to like, okay, well, let me just kind of, let you know, this is how I identify and whatsoever. And so the fact that he got serious and trying to like really like make it be known like you are this, I'm like, well, you know what, if you can't respect that, baby, you can't have anything. You can't have my fish stick, you can't have my pussy, you can't have none of this. So like at the end of the day, yeah, it is what it is. So I'm gonna piggyback off for Naomi and say it's definitely my privacy as well too, because if I tell you who I am, respect me for who I am.
Thank you. Thank you for that. One, thank you for the transparency. And two, thank you for the authenticity. If you watch our show, you know that Tori and I bring you the real talk and the way people don't understand it. Granted, we are professionals, but baby, we are still of the community and a part of the community. And we're going to do what needs to be done to make sure that the voice of the community is heard.
Period.
Wants to be heard. Okay. And my P stands for what? Period. So Renee, can you tell us and inform us, what does your P represent to you? What is your P for you?
My P is probably going to be like the power of presence, because I think of those who came before me and knowing our history, and it's very important to know who paved the path that we could have those freedoms that we have today. So I would say presence, and also getting people to understand that we are all human. It's hard for us. I feel like sometimes that we don't have, we're not as empathetic as we should be with each other. We're not as graceful as we should be with each other, because we're all individuals just trying to experience life, and we have the same wants. People think that the differences that we have is what separate us. I think those differences are the things that bring us together more when we try to be understanding with each other. And for me, my P would be the power of presence and representing my community and trying to pave the path for those who come behind me.
And I would like to thank you for being a matriarch in your community and for leading the way for people coming up the rear, because it's so important, especially like when you're the one leading an initiative and when you're the one starting something new that hasn't been done before. A lot of times you get a lot of negative feedback, and sometimes it's hard. So in this moment, I'm gonna give you your roses, plural, and let you know I appreciate you and thank you for the work that you've done and will continue to do. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bambi, how about you? What does your P mean to you outside of your pronoun?
My P to me is people, right? My people are those who are sex workers, those who have been incarcerated, those who have been in immigration detention, those who are immigrants, those who are drug addicts, those who are houseless, my people are, the people who keep me strong, the people who also keep me grounded, the ones who is my people, and there's the ones who uplift me and support me and love me even when I cannot love myself.
Oof. I need to take a deep breath after that one, because that really sat with me. Thank you for sharing it. And I think a lot of times people fail to acknowledge that the people around them, sometimes it's a reflection of them. And your P is the people within your life, because those people help you be the best person that you can be, not only for yourself, but also for them. So thank you for being authentic and transparent with your response. Tori, I think it's on you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Bambi, and for all of you. And Lash actually got us started on the next part. So is it possible, y'all, that we can talk a little bit about sex? Because I am very, very sex positive, and I think it's important for us to have these kind of conversations in a way, might be titillating, but it's also informative and educational, and not with the stigma that's attached to sex and trans bodies and all that other kind of stuff. So can we talk about sex? So I want to know, so what is it really? What is respecting your personal parts? And notice that I purposely didn't use the term private parts because this is a safe space. And I wanted to make it clear that this is a safe space and we want to have real grown-up conversations here. The term private parts is cool, but it seems a little bit juvenile to me in some ways. For me, it means the being with a partner or vice versa. And that's going to be really, really important because adults do adult things. And yes, notice I did use the word partners. For some people, that might be plurals, more than one. All right, because the truth is there's plenty of me to go around. And your weapons of judgment do not work on me. So for some trans and non-binary folks, their personal parts might be off limits to their partners. And that's important too. They may experience dysphoria or some type of dissociation with them. So gender affirming interventions are one way to help to bring the mind and the body together. Whatever your journey you're on, and with as much respect as Chris and I can offer, please tell us about respecting your personal parts and what that means to you in a sex positive way. And while we're at it, feel free to use real words, whatever, however you describe it. And also remember, sleeping with somebody doesn't put you at risk for HIV. Having condomless sex with a person with a detectable viral load does. So we're gonna use real words to describe real situations, all right? Let's start with Naomi and go in the opposite direction this time.
All right, well, for me, respecting my private parts means respecting that I want to do whatever I want to do with them, okay? And whatever I say I want to do with them or I don't want to do with them, respect that and respect me for it if we're going to move forward. If not, bye, because I ain't got time. So, you know, what I do want to do, and part of my private parts is my mouth. Okay, part of my private parts is other parts of my body, my fingers, toes, and everything in between. So yeah, just, you know, respecting my decisions of what I want to do when I'm in the bed or on the car or, you know, in the car or in the yard or wherever we are doing what we're doing, and just respecting what I want to do with it and what makes me feel comfortable.
You better say it. And people seem to forget, folks, that the skin, your skin, is actually the largest sex organ that you have. People forget that. So thank you for bringing that into the conversation because, you know, my big feet, they love being touched and rubbed on too. So let's go Bambi next. Tell us a little bit about your personal parts. Naomi used the word private parts. They don't even have to be about yours. But as trans people who have sex, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly do have sex, lots of it, you know, even if it's with myself, right? I don't need to have someone to allow myself to feel pleasure, right? I have learned to discover my body and to find places where I find pleasure and joy, and I enjoy. And so, yes, of course, you know, it's always great to have someone who you can explore, you know, bodies and parts of the body that, you know, that feel good. But, you know, as a trans woman, I have to say, and as a trans woman who is in the eye of the public, right? Oftentimes, I'm a heterosexual trans woman, and so I am attracted to masculine individuals, right, who have a penis, right? And so, you know, I don't have a steady partners. I have multiple partners actually. You know, people who I have sex with on a regular basis, but you know, they're those individuals who I have been seeing for a while, and who we can text and, you know, see what could happen, but sometimes it doesn't happen, you know. And so in those moments, you know, if my body is asking me to release some tension, then I'm happy and willing and able to, you know, get my toys if I need them, or not, and just take care of myself, in whatever way I feels preferable. And so, I think it's also important to understand that, many men who are attracted to trans women, they just want to have sex with us, right? And not necessarily get into like a more romantic relationship. And at least that has been my experience, simply because, they want to just keep things hush hush, and I'm I'm nobody's secret, right? And so if they don't want that, then that's fine. If you're cute and if you're giving me what I need, let's get it on, and so I've learned not to be ashamed of, who I am, period, right? Like whether I, whatever I have between my legs is, it's me and mine only. And if I want to share it, I'll share it. And if not, then I won't share it.
That's good. And that's really powerful and really bold of you to say in a really respectful way. And I think it's also what you just described also for people is a term that I learned a few years ago. You said that you're a heterosexual woman who's attracted to masculinity. And the term for that, folks, is androsexual. And the reverse of that, people who are attracted to femininity, is gynosexual. Did you know that? Well, you just learned something new. And I think that's really, really powerful because we can be attracted to folks. And I think attraction is not just about sex, And so as Renee and then Lash both respond to this question, really talking about sex as a trans person, and what that can be and what respectful sex looks like. And again, respecting your P's, whatever they are. Your P's in this case could be your personal parts or your private parts, as Naomi said, respecting all of those things for your partners, yet another P. All right. So Renee and then Lash.
I'm probably going to break up the monotony because I am a person who identifies as asexual, demisexual. And a lot of people may not understand those terms, but I'm going to break it out. Asexual, most asexuals deny having sexual urges. I do not deny having sexual urges. I have urges, but I tend not to act on it. And I have been celibate most of my adult life. I haven't, and I know this is going to sound about they will be a child, but I haven't been with anybody I've had sex in between 10 and 15 years. I would rather have a nice dinner or buy me some technology than, be with somebody who may not understand me being positive or how I identify. And part of it is I'm not very sexual and I'm not, it's not a major priority for me, but I don't have anything against anybody else that like to have sex and lots of it. I'm like, go ahead, go for it. If you want to be positive, do what you got to do. But for me, it's just kind of exhausting to me to disclose my HIV status to somebody, trying to be honest and give them a decision that I probably didn't have because no one told me they were positive in my situation. So it's just exhausting to me. And then I'm like, I have what I often, when I do have sex with people, I have what I call remorseful sex. I be like, what did I get out of this? And why did I let this fool touch me? And let me get this person up out of my house. So that's my experience as far as being sexual. I enjoy talking about sex. But as far as like having to have sex, no. I'd rather have a nice crystal. I'd rather have a Chilean sea bass. I'd rather have some technology. I often forget that I have a penis. It's not something that I'm concerned about. It's not a priority for me.
Come on with it, Lash. And what we're hearing is different folks talking about their experiences. And I think it's always important to understand, even though we all fall under the trans umbrella, that we all have different lived experiences. And each experience, just like each different gender identity and all forms of gender expression, are equally valid.
I think for me, when it comes down to like respecting my people, just piggybacking off of the story that I said earlier, and just using another situation, because I was also dealing with another individual who actually respected my pronouns, and he also he also went by he, him, they, them as well too, which I go by she, they. So we kind of like had like a mutual understanding when it came down to that. So he understood the fact of me calling it my area down there a fish stick. He understood me calling my area down back there a pussy. So like he understood all that. He understood the fact of me, my chest area is it's titty. So like he understood all of that. And so for me overall, I feel like anybody that I come across with or I lay down with, or anybody that I like that I indulge with sexually, for me the biggest thing is, before I lay down with you, is the fact that you understand me, how I identify. I'm also attracted to masculine energy as well too. But overall, that's just my biggest thing, like making sure that if you're gonna be masculine and dominant, understand that I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be feminine, I'm gonna be submissive, and I also need you during those times to respect me, and not as soon as you get your nut, now you back to trying to bro me or anything like that, because it's not giving it either. So I think that for me, it's just understanding me completely, even if it's just a one night stand, still understanding how I identify in those moments as well. So because we can get tips, we can get lit, and then we want to take somebody home and do wash away. But after you get your nut or whatever, I need you to still be, I don't need you for you to be trying to bro me or anything like that. So I think for me overall is just truly understanding me before laying down and after laying down with you. That's like the biggest thing for me.
Thank you for that. And Chris is going to ask the next question, but one of the things I had to realize, and I think, so I'm 51, I'll be 52 pretty soon. And one of the things that it took me a long time to realize is that everybody that I have sex with in relationship material, I don't know why it didn't dawn on me when I was younger. Sometimes it's just sex. And it's not even always good sex. Sometimes it's just sex. And it took me a long time to realize that. So another P that I had to really think about in my life is respect my sexual practices. How about that? Because everybody, if you're not relationship material, you probably don't get the platinum package. Oh, that's a double P right there. You just get the, Anyway, go ahead, Chris, child, because we could sit here and talk about my sex life all night if you want to, but we're not going to. Go ahead with the next question, Tom.
So, still in the realm of sex, but in the form of having sex, we're going to talk about sex and HIV prevention. So the P of this new topic is going to be prevention. And so this question is, how we know that the transgender, non-binary folk encounter a number of barriers to healthcare. How does a person's gender identity impact their HIV care or access to HIV prevention? And how can the EHE initiative be most effective within the trans and gender non-conforming communities? And so before you answer this question, I want you to think about this in terms of access to PrEP and PEP, getting to viral suppression, hormone therapy for those who choose to seek it. You heard I said choose to seek it, and affirming medical care and affirming medical providers. And so we're just gonna go in the same backwards order. So let's go with Naomi, Bambi, Renee, and finish up with Lash.
Okay, well, for me, as far as prevention and healthcare, I really see it as starting with respecting my P pronoun, right? Respecting my personal parts and my privacy as well, what the other individual said, because if you're not respecting my body, what I call my body parts, how I use my body parts, and how I identify as soon as I walk in the door, then that's already putting up a barrier for me to want to be in your place, so that I am able to receive the care that I need. And in regards to what EHE can do to better reach the trans and gender non-binary community, I think it would be first really trying to understand the community, and then being a part in the community so that you can build trust in the community. Because I think that that's a big barrier, is that the community does not feel that they can trust individuals who are engaged in the work or who are in the positions to make change, empowered to make change that can benefit our lives. And so actually understanding us and being a part of us is definitely going to help EHE be better at helping serve the transgender community and gender nonconforming and non-binary.
Thank you for that. And some of the things that you said are very important as it relates to privacy and as it relates to respect. And I think that another thing that came to mind when you were talking was that sometimes people's perceptions can be the thing that prevents access to care for people who are under this trans umbrella, right? So people need to be mindful of the perceptions that they have of the community. And so just to go back, when I say EHE, and the EHE initiative stands for the Ending the HIV Epidemic in America, right? And so the goal is to end HIV within America by the year 2030 through the four pillars of prevention, treatment, diagnosis, and responding. And we won't do a deep dive into that now because we're going to get to that later, but I just wanted to give our viewers an opportunity, a bit backing of what EHE meant and what EHE is representing. So EHE is basically plan to end HIV, period, right? And like you said, I think a lot of that starts with combating people's perceptions of folk, especially within the trans and non-conforming communities. Bambi, how do you feel, or can you talk about some of the barriers that trans folks and gender non-conforming people encounter when trying to access care as it relates to HIV prevention and care?
This is like a question that is super loaded, but I think, we have to keep it real, right? So that's one thing. And the other thing is that, the structures that we have in place, right? They continue to put band-aids to the real problem, right? And so I think it's very vague, all of those things. But for our people, for trans, gender non-conforming, and intersex people, right? We're the most impacted. Especially trans women, right? Like the rates of infection are greater than any other population. Yet, there's still funding interventions that are trying to teach us how to put a condom when we know how to put a condom. I mean, we have been in this epidemic more than 40 years. And so, what we need is resources for us to not continue to be homeless, for us to be employed, for us to not, to those things that put us at risk to acquire HIV, and also invest in, in prevention services, right? Like I know some girls who, want to be infected because that's the only way they can get housing through HELPWA, right? That is not a way to do that. So, accessing healthcare, of course, there's so many barriers, right? For our people specifically.
Well, thank you, Bambi, for that, because you brought up a lot of things that we don't hear. And some of the things that I gleaned from that is that you and I agree on one thing. However, here's some good parts about the EHE that I want everybody that's listening to understand. It's really the first coordinated effort to end HIV that actually puts power back into the community, into people like us. And I think that's really important. It's also the first plan to end HIV that actually includes the word trans in there and transgender, which is also really important. So we can take the good stuff from the EHE and use it. One of the things that you and I, because we've shared space quite a bit, that you and I agree on to an extent, is that until people who are living with HIV, people who are positive, yet another P, until people who are positive have everything that they need to get to this magical, undetectable viral load state, when they get to undetectable viral load, I think what that does is it until then, we'll continue to have new HIV infections. And so one of the things that we want each and every one of us to think about, and we want other folks who are taking EHE money, folks who are doing the work in the community, certainly we want to prevent people because folks are still having sex. Somebody's having sex right now, God bless them. I might do it after this call is over. But it's important to understand that when people who are living with HIV get to undetectable viral loads, you then cannot pass HIV along to your sexual partners. And for many of us who are doing this work, what we believe is that if everybody who can gets to an undetectable viral load, we make sure that they have everything that they need, not just medicine, but also housing, access to employment for those who need it, or certainly to some kind of income, making sure that people who have children or want children have access to quality healthcare, education, et cetera, food, and not just stuff that you put in a microwave, but access to real food and all kinds of things, and nourishment and vitamins if they need them, and hair hormone therapy, because that's really important to some people, as particularly some people of trans experience, and also to some people not. Until we make sure that we're addressing those things, all of us as different community advocates, then the truth is we're never going to end the HIV epidemic. So thank you for bringing those things into this conversation. And one more point before we move on to the next thing. I know Bambi says just because the word trans is in there doesn't mean that it's really supportive of trans people. And you're right, you're absolutely right. But again, this is the first time that trans people have been mentioned in this type of work. And it's really, really important because first of all, it means that we were at least considered. Not enough, we all agree, not enough. But because the EHE specifically provides resources for trans people to do work with other trans people in communities all across the country, that is something that we need to take about. Trans people were mentioned in 2015, but it's not quite the same. There's a difference in the way that, because remember, this, like you just said, this is also a continuation of that. So thank you for that, Bambi. Thank you for bringing those things into the conversation. And this is exactly why you all are here, because you all provide other ways for us to think about this. All right. And that's really, really powerful. So.
And I didn't even answer the question, and I'm sorry.
Don't apologize, because what you did was good. You provided, so granted, what we got was we have different, again, just like when we were talking earlier about our gender identities and what our P's are, we have 5 different folks here, or 6 different folks who are talking about 6 different lived experiences, and even 6 different ways in the way that we view the same document. So thank you for that, because what you did was you brought up some of the things. So that's really important. So thank you for bringing those things into the conversation, Bambi. I appreciate it. All right.
And then
let's keep it moving, because we only, can y'all believe we only have like 15 minutes left?
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I agree with the story. Thank you, Danny, because that's your perspective. So that's what this place is about. It's about bringing people together to showcase and to talk about what they feel like it's going to take to really end the HIV epidemic from their own perspective. And I think that your opinion is valid, and there are other people out there who are going to be watching that resonate with your opinion, right? And so how you think and how you feel is the way to create change, because we're here to promote and to activate and to create change. And so going back to the question, I'm going to break it down just a bit for Renee and Travi, and I want to ask you all specifically about how does a person's gender identity impact their HIV care or access to HIV prevention?
When it comes down to it, just piggybacking off of some of the responses that was already said. It's just when I first walk into the door, especially like if I've been seeing this doctor, for quite some time now, is you understanding me or you understand how I identify when I first walk into the door. Even when you're at the check-in, when you're checking in, sometimes I do wish that when you walk, how you do your check-in, you gotta wait for your doctor. I do wish that sometimes that they because some places say you're like, oh hey, they say your first name, instead of saying hey sir or hey miss, and again, it's all about like what you're looking at in that moment. And so sometimes I wish people that work at the receptionist take that away. And if you don't know, just utilize that person's first name that's in front of you. Don't, because when I walk up there, sometimes they're like, good afternoon, sir. And I'm like, ooh, can you just I'd rather you just say my name. Like, because you have to explain that to them. But even like that, I just wish that people would understand, people that works in just community health, just understand that just a little bit more when it comes down to knowing on how to approach people, knowing how about pronouns. Because if my doctor can address me by my proper pronouns, the receptionist should be able to approach me about my pronouns as well too. So that's just the first thing. The second thing is, like I said, it's just all about like, my biggest thing is like, if anybody comes into care that needs assistance, I just really want them to be able to just kind of like get assistance. Sometimes I also feel like it should not have to be about like, a diagnosis or anything like that. Sometimes I do feel like, when we are in situations, because I remember, I forgot her name, but she just spoke on it. Like sometimes people that's out here that's like trying to get help will go out here and just will go out here to get HIV, just to get help. And it's like, why do we have to like, kind of like find ourselves in these situations where like we have to like do things to get help? And it's like, if I see my sister of trans experience getting help, and I'm over here trying to get help, and she's getting housing, and she may be diagnosed with HIV, why is it that I can't get housing and I may not be living with HIV? So it's like just different things like that. I just kind of wish that, as a whole, that we can just be equal, like around just trying to help all each other out, and not just I guess like a special or just like one individual because they're living with, and this person's not living with, or this person may identify as this, and this person may not identify, because there are agencies that will help out people of trans experience, but then I may not be of trans experience. I'm non-binary, but then I can't get housing because I'm not trans. So it's like, overall, I just wish that it would just be a common ground where we all could just come in and just receive help, and not just off of just groups, I would say.
Thank you for that, Lash. And you actually, the topic about housing and receiving access to services outside of HIV care is going to lead us into our next question, where we're going to talk about models of holistic care. But before I get there, I want to give Renee a chance to answer this question about how does a person's gender identity impact their HIV care or access to HIV prevention? Because I know you shared a bit of a personal story earlier when you talked about a provider who repeatedly misgendered you. And you said that, baby, if you cannot respect my pronouns, you cannot provide me services. And I know that feeling is the same feeling and the same stigma, discrimination faced by a lot of people. And I come to think about like, where do people get care, or how can they get care when they go to get care and they don't feel safe? Because respecting your peers is also about your safety, right? So Renee, can you please share with us from your perspective, how does a person's gender identity impact their HIV care or access to HIV prevention?
Well, as you know, I'm located in Memphis, Tennessee, which is, there's more churches than there are drugstores. It's like you see Walgreens on every corner, you see a church on every corner in Memphis. So it's the buckle of the Bible Belt. So a lot of times, you run into those religious types that it's the culture of the actual clinic and doctors that are working with you that determines the quality of care that you get. Like my current doctor, I always also tell folks, every moment is not a teachable moment. If I'm not invested in teaching you, because sometimes that's triggering for a trans person, they have to, and data says that 50% of all trans people have to teach their practitioners we teach people how to treat us. And that should be necessary. I think that within those courses that they teach medical students, there should be a trans prepared readiness course to let them know, because it's more and more people coming out as non-binary, as trans and GNC, and there has to be a culture shift to make sure that we get the healthcare that we should be able to access. And also, I have leftist leanings, so I believe in universal healthcare, and I believe in basic income and all those type of things that people think is just like common socialism. But I believe in that, and I don't believe in socialism is perfect either. But I see that as a way for people to be able to access care. And I think about the different types of interventions that are coming down the line, and are they receptive to trans folks and GNC and non-binary people in these interventions? Because when they say men have sex with men, nobody's gonna walk up to you and say, "Hi, I'm Tyrone and I have sex with me." Nobody introduces themselves like that. So I'm kind of irritated with that labeling people by behavior. But also, I believe in comprehensive sex education that has an LGBTQIA lens to it. And yeah, everybody should know how to put on a condom, but we still got people talking about Vaseline and different things that would break down a condom and not knowing the proper steps and checking to see if the condom is expired and so forth and so on. And people need to know those basic steps as a means of protection. So I believe in comprehensive sex education that has an LGBT lens to it as part of a reproductive justice, and not abstinence only, because everybody's having sex. And we need a culture shift where sex is not so taboo.
One thing that you said that stood out to me was culture. And we need to shift what the current culture looks like. We need to shift what the past culture looked like as it relates to making sure that people most impacted by HIV have equitable, let me repeat, have equitable access to the care and additional resources that they need that mitigate and attack those social determinants of health outside of how people have sex. There needs to be a culture shift and a greater emphasis on housing, food insecurity, health literacy, stigma, discrimination, the development of peer support and community. And with this culture shift, is going to lead me into another discussion about the new EHE strategy, because I think that this strategy, different from strategies of the past, has a heightened influence on culture and meeting people where they are and the voices of community. Because as we know, community is culture and culture is the communities that we represent, right? And so before I ask you some specific questions about the different parts of EHE, I'm going to do a little background about it. And Tori talked about it earlier. Tori informed you all that the EHE is the first coordinated strategy to really tackle HIV transmission. It's an approach that combines pretty much all the major governmental organizations. They're working collaboratively together in a way that they haven't worked before to really put an end, or to attempt to put an end to the HIV epidemic. And so within this EHE initiative plan to end the HIV epidemic in America is broken down by 4 different pillars of prevention, diagnose, treatment, and responding. And with a goal to have a 75% reduction of new HIV infections by the year 2025 and a 90% reduction in new HIV infections by the year 2030.
Thank you for that, Chris, because you broke it down and you did what you were supposed to do and gave us a very, very future doctor, by the way, everybody. That you gave us a really great overview of what the EHE is and what some of the goals are. And I know Bambi has to leave. So if we can go a little out of order, we want to really talk about the 4 pillars, and we want to give Bambi an opportunity to go first and really tell us, Bambi. We know that you have identified that you are a Latina trans woman.
Yeah, you know, like we our organization, we do have a PrEP program, right? Specifically supporting trans Latinx people. And one of the recurring challenges that we have is um, the time that people have to wait to make appointments for, you know, to see a provider to prescribe PrEP, right? And it's all around insurance, you know. And like here in Los Angeles, for instance, you know, there's 2 clinics that have a trans affirming program, if you will, um, and they're like, they have waiting lists to see a doctor, you know, just regular for like hormones or whatever. But for PrEP, you know, that's the first thing that they ask people, right? Like, what's your insurance? Do you have insurance, right? And so what we have seen is that if people are going to a clinic to like get their hormones and things like that, in order to get PrEP, when we do a referral, they have to change the whole thing because of the insurance, right? And so like that is not productive for people, because people have to change everything, right? Like if they're comfortable with their doctor, but then they have to go to a provider who provides PrEP, but then it's based on insurance. Like it's just, the system is just so complicated. And so, you know, for trans Latinx people specifically, you know, we actually did a study in 2017 that, you know, 90% of the people who responded to that survey stated that they go to the doctor on emergency rooms, like when they're really sick, right? And so that's not part of our culture, right? Like we don't go to see a doctor for anything unless it's extremely necessary, right? Like oftentimes we find traditional healing methods, right? And which is also oftentimes not good, right? Because, you know, we need professionals that can take care of us, especially when it comes to HIV. And so, you know, there's so many challenges. Obviously, you know, even in Los Angeles, where, you know, the majority of the people who live here in Los Angeles is Latinx people, right? There's still providers who don't necessarily speak Spanish or are not familiar with the trans experience, right? And so like this challenge is constant, but we are certainly, you know, we're providing trainings to PrEP providers here. There's in LA County, like they've built like the Center of Excellence for PrEP or something, which is, you know, different organizations. And so we are providing training to these institutions to better support trans Latinx people. So there's a lot of challenges, but you know, I think it's important that we continue to empower our community the best possible way, whether that's through testing, you know, obviously treatment and, you know, viral suppression. But in order for us to get there, it's like we need to have our basic needs met and addressed.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, and thank you. That's a hell of a way to go off tonight, but thank you. There needs to be, thank you so much for being here, and intentional investments in trans communities. Thank you for that. So see you later. We'll talk. Naomi.
So that we don't have to be put in that position. And in order for us to get there, there needs to be an intentional investment in the lives of trans people. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
I totally agree with you, and thank you. That's a hell of a way to go off tonight, but thank you. There needs to be, thank you so much for being here, and intentional investments in trans communities. Thank you for that. So see you later. We'll talk. Naomi. how about you come up next and talk a little bit about, again, one of the 4 pillars of the EHE is about treatments and what treatment is. And that's what I think also one of the bright spots in the EHE is that it doesn't just talk about treatment for people who've been diagnosed with HIV, but as you've heard, and Bambi just said it, and we've also mentioned PrEP strategies as well, and PrEP modalities. So because PrEP isn't just, when we think of PrEP, we have to be mindful of PrEP is one thing, and pre-exposure prophylactic strategies can be a number of different things, including an injectable, which will soon be widely available for folks. So talk a little bit about treatment for positives and for negatives, because both of those are part of the strategy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that what you're saying, with responding to treatment, for positive and for negative individuals is a part of the response that we have, for individuals. And just like you all said, it needs to be very intentional. And I think that going back to something you said earlier, Tori, it's important to have that trans included in the plan and no longer wrapped into MSMs, because they need to be intentional in how they respond to the treatment and the needs of trans people, because we are different and we are all different. And so I think that part of the treatment and part of the way that they respond with treatment needs to be individualized as well, because my needs as a Black transgender woman are going to be different than the needs of another Black transgender woman, which are going to be different than the needs of MSMs. Because we deal with different issues, different levels of stigma. So of course we have different needs. And so the response and the treatment that you provide us is going to be different and individualized as well. And so I think that that's definitely for me a major component, is making sure that we are treating the whole person, and that our response, includes treatment and then other aspects of our life that need to be addressed as well.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, Lash, tell us a little bit about prevention strategies for positives and for negatives.
Yes, so I believe for positives, I think the main thing is making sure that one actually gets into care. Like actually after finding out about your diagnosis is the next step, is actually linking that individual into care. And sometimes, I get it that, and just openly being transparent, when I was diagnosed in 2017, at first I was just kind of like very uneducated. I thought the world was finna end. It was like, okay, you know what? It is what it is. But somebody had to break it down to me, and really be like, okay, look, this is what it is. Take your medicine, become undetectable, and so forth and so on. So I believe for me, it's actually getting that person into care, making sure that they understand what care is, because a lot of people think that, oh, well, I get into care and I can take a pill and then that's it. It's still, even after HIV, there's still STIs that are still out as well too. So you still have to understand that portion as well. So explaining what care is, getting that individual into care, making sure that they stay in care. That's another thing. And then as far as for ones that comes in for being negative, it's okay now that you find out that you're negative. How can we help you stay negative? So what practices are you taking? Are you using condoms? Are you on PrEP? Would you like to start PrEP? So just having those type of conversations and making sure that on both sides, positive and negative, that they actually stay in care, because that's going to be the thing to truly end, because once you fall out of care, now it's like, okay. So for me, as being a community health outreach worker, it's making sure that I have an open door policy of just, let's have an open conversation about everything, so I can help you stay in care, so I can help you get into care.
Thank you for including care as part of prevention. Thank you for that, because people will forget that, again, and this is my opinion, and it might not apply to everybody else. Come on, because we want you to close out this section on the 4 pillars. But I truly believe that when we make sure that people who are living with HIV get every single thing that they need, every tool that they need to get to and maintain an undetectable viral load.
Yes.
How we end the epidemic. And that means getting into care as part of a prevention strategy. Thank you for bringing it into the conversation.
No problem.
All right. And my girl Nevaeh is over there with you. Tell her I said hey.
Yes, that's my girl.
All right, Renee. So you're going to close us out, and then Chris and I are going to send everybody home. Can you talk a little bit about Diagnosis and how the EHE deals with diagnosis and what folks on the ground can do after an HIV diagnosis?
I think that I don't know what initiatives that we have all over the country, but I believe that the Rapid Start programs are vital to keep people in care. And what I mean by Rapid Start is to immediately be prescribed HRTs so you can start your medication as soon as you find out. So you don't have to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You need to be started within a few days of a diagnosis instead of maybe having to wait a month or 2 weeks to get in and see a doctor. You should be able to see the doctor the same day you get your diagnosis. I think those Rapid Start programs are an important part of diagnosis and response.
As I close us out, and Chris is gonna have the last word tonight. I just took some notes because that's what I do and like to tie in some of the things. And I think this is really, really important to remember. And these are just from some of the things that you said. The truth is there's never going to be one solution that's gonna work for everybody. It's just as simple. One condom doesn't work for everybody. Because somebody said it earlier, Bambi said it, everybody knows how to use a condom, maybe. And even if you don't, you know condoms work, but you have to use them. All right, so that's important. If you're not using condoms in your sexual encounters, then what other strategies, what other tools do you have in your toolbox? So there's not only one way to end the HIV epidemic. Rapid Start, thank you for bringing that into the conversation, Renee. That's great for some people. It's yet another tool. There are gonna be some people who are gonna need time to digest what it means, this diagnosis means. And it's great to have options. And that's a wonderful thing that you brought into this conversation. Also, options are great. Not only one way to identify. We are a great example of that. Just the six of us who are on here has 6 different personalities, 6 different names, but we all are different people with different lived experience, and each is equally valid, just like each of these different ways to end the HIV epidemic is, and also not one way to experience life. And what we hope is that if nothing else, that you understand after today's conversation that you can have as much or as little sex as you want to, because that is your body and is your privilege. There's another piece. Close this out, Chris.
And I think that being a part of having your own personal privilege is also acknowledging your own person. And so if you did not notice, in this space, we had 4 amazing co-hosts today with us that all had different identities, different experiences, and different perspectives on similar topics. So as our viewers, I want you to acknowledge and know that you may have your own way of looking at things. You may have your own train of thought when it comes to a specific community, but just know that your thought is not the right thought all the time. Your thought is not the only thought. And we have to be mindful about other people's perceptions and other people's purses and other people's peas when included within the narrative. And as we continue on this journey to effectively and impactfully end the HIV epidemic by the year 2030, I want you to be reminiscent and remember that it's more than you. We are people and we are better together. And it's not just one person, it's people who are going to effectively make a change. But before we leave, I want you to get to know the people that you see here today. So before I take us out, please unmute yourselves and share how can our viewers get in contact with you.
I am Naomi Green. You can contact me on Facebook, Naomi Bad As I Am Green. You can also catch me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, at Nay to the. That's NAY, the number 2 THE, Nay to the. Thank you.
Hey y'all again. You can find me on Facebook at Traviaiko. That's TRAVIIAIKO. In parentheses, it would say Lash the Versailles. Yeah. You can also find me on Instagram at Traviaiko. That's TRAVIIAIKO_. TikTok is GNC Pink. And email is Travis W. That's TRAVISW.7449@iCloud.com.
Hey y'all, I'm Renee Taylor, located in Memphis, Tennessee. I can be reached on Facebook and LinkedIn at Renee M. Taylor. My Facebook may say The Renee Taylor, but Facebook is probably the easiest way to get me. But also you can email me at renee@transcendmemphis.com. Yeah, that's how you can get in touch with me.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So hopefully you can connect with some amazing people. Before I take it out and before we end today, I want to thank each and every one of my co-hosts for being authentic, for being real, and for being transparent. Because with these conversations, we will make a change. And I am determined to be a conduit of the change. Sending you love, light, peace, and my P, prosperity. Until we meet again, talk to you soon, y'all. Bye.